Tom King run of Batman come to an end, but how did it start? I'm taking a look at DC Universe Rebirth coming right off of the relaunching to optimism, if you will. Maybe that's not a fair description, but we're looking at Batman #1 by Tom King, David Finch. Let's take a look. Hey there, this is Perch. It's one of the things I would like to do more often is that we often get caught up in where a run goes or how a comic series ends or lands, and it's important to go back in time and take a look at how things all began. Now, let me set the stage for you. We were coming off of the end of the New 52. The New 52 started off strong. A lot of people have forgotten that the New 52 allowed DC to beat Marvel in the sales for quite some time. I mean, in comic years anyway, the New 52 was a success. And then it started to dwindle and drop as Marvel kind of got their act together, and also some of the holes in DC's plans got exposed. There were some editorial issues that caused people like George Perez and others to basically hate life. And it stumbled. And then we had Convergence and DCU and a bunch of initiatives that tried to recreate the magic and failed. So in comes Jeff Johns to say, we're going to get back to who we are. They do Rebirth, which is kind of the reimagining, if you will, of not reimagining, the return to imagining. I'm not sure the right phrase there, but we're going to get back to what made us great. Make DC Comics great again, you might say. So one of those was a very high-profile acquisition of Tom King, who had come off of the Vision series at Marvel, which was very, very popular, successful. What people had not seen before. I think he was seen as a definite up-and-comer writer, somebody who had a really kind of more thought-provoking story. There were a lot of comparisons to, Tom King is the next Alan Moore, the next Grant Morrison, some really big flair for you, touting his abilities. I'm not sure. At any rate, in comes Tom King. He's partnered up with David Finch, who was another fairly big acquisition by DC from Marvel, but he'd been working on some of the New 52 books, and some of the shine had worn off of David Finch to some extent, but he was still seen as a pretty big deal. So Batman #1 launches. At the same time, we get a Brian Hitch Justice League with Tony Daniel doing the art there. We get Robert Venditti and Ethan Van Sciver doing Green Lantern. We get a bunch of different things going on here. We get Superman with the son and the family, and we have Doomsday Clock around the bend and Metal. So a lot of things firing on all cylinders. So here we go with Batman. So again, remembering everything that happened, the Tom King Batman run recently divisive in the sense that we had the Catwoman romance, we had the aborted wedding that happened at issue number 50, then we had Depressed Batman, we had City of Bane, then we had the kind of accelerate to the end as his run got cut short. And we also had a lot of Batman dealing kind of with his father, with Thomas Wayne, and kind of who he is and where he fits and all that. We have the death of Alfred. So thinking about all those things in your mind, we go back to his first issue. Our first issue has basically Batman reestablishing himself as a protector of the city, as the guy. So we have a plane, we have Batman having a nice chat, we have a missile hit the plane. So page number 3, we're immediately getting into the action, which is interesting because if you think of some of the decompressed kind of emotional moment-by-moment storytelling, in this issue, it's reasonably fast-paced. We have a page of the plane, we have a page of Gordon and Batman talking, and then we're setting up that relationship. The dialogue and the moments are coming on nicely crisp. At the end of page number 3, we've got Bruce off trying to save this plane. So Batman is immediately, diving into action. He's talking to Alfred. He's trying to figure out who can get help. Call Clark. He knows, helping a plane about to crash is not at all something he can do. So Batman is King is really showcasing both the strategy, the tech, the smarts of Batman as he realizes he's going to, basically, shoot the Batmobile off a bridge, eject himself out of it to the point where he can fly up to this plane that is slowly coming in for a crash landing in Gotham and would kill lots and lots of people within Gotham. It's also interesting in hindsight if you look at this and you think about where the comic went with City of Bane and people getting kind of murdered left and right and all kinds of things. I mean, here is Batman trying to save certainly thousands of lives if you think about this plane crashing into the city and the loss of life. From Alfred's words, the loss of life would be exceptional coming into Gotham squares. But you can think of thousands of people being killed here. But then in now, fast forward to a few years later, and we've got, we've had bombs go off and all kinds of things. So, I mean, you've got to expect that whatever the tragedy is here that Batman is so determined to save and ultimately give his life for, we're dealing with very casually toward the end of the run. It's just interesting to get that perspective. So Batman jumps onto the plane. I mean, this is both cool in the sense that we're getting Batman's kind of scientific, his heroism. We learned that Superman and none of the heroes are available. They're all off planet or doing something else. That's always, I remember when I read this for the first time, I always thought, really, is there not like Starfire? There's no Green Lantern either. Like everybody is off planet. We've got nobody here. That seems a little strange. But okay. I mean, all the heroes are gone. Sure, why not? So Batman gets on the plane to basically steer it. And it's both ridiculous and cool simultaneously. It's definitely ridiculous. And we've got, people freaking out on the plane, coming to grips with they're about to die. And Batman is going to basically put some engines on the plane. I mean, again, you have to turn off your mind a little bit to the realism of this, as Batman is hanging off of a plane underneath the wing, putting bolting engines onto it while holding the other engine with his forearm and chin. I mean, under no accounts is this anything but ridiculous. But sure, I mean, why why not? The sheer wind and everything else would tear Batman to pieces. But it's a cool visual. It's Batman doing something reasonably clever, and he's now lighting up the plane, and he's going to steer it over the buildings, over Gotham Square. He's pulling it up somehow, or maybe he's just hanging on. It's hard to say. Alfred's kind of steering the plane. We get a lot of nice dialogue between Bruce and Alfred, which, I don't know if Tom King knew where his run was going when he started it. As you read this issue, it's hard to imagine Tom King fully had a plan for where Batman 100 was going to wind up. Maybe he had some general story beats. The conversation with Alfred does make you suspect that he had a long game plan to kill Alfred, because that is that does kind of have this feel to it. But anyway, we get a little bit of a shadowy, somebody took out the Cobra member who shot the plane. That's fine. That's our one little subplot in all this. But mostly we get Batman coming to the realization, or at least Alfred noting to Batman, it will be impossible for you to survive if you send this plane down, and to navigate to a point of entry. I'm very confused why the plane would absorb the lives inside, and Batman, who's shown that he can kind of jettison on and off and use his cable to basically surf this plane flying through the city that's on fire, why a crash into the water would kill him. That seems a little weird after we've seen the last 5 pages or so of him being able to kind of dive off the plane, hook it, and dive on again. I mean, I think there's a lot of different things you can do. But anyway, Batman's steering this thing down, or Alfred's steering it. The fact that Batman's going to sacrifice his life doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but okay. But Batman's basically talking to Alfred and saying, would mother and father, would they have been proud of me? Which was maybe another indication of kind of where this run was going. We were going to deal with some father issues with Thomas Wayne and his family, and kind of getting into that. That was clearly where Tom King wanted to take this, of really examining Batman and his role, both with his family and his parents, and is it a good death? But as the plane crashes, it is saved basically at the last second by two flying people, Gotham and Gotham Girl, who show up to save the plane. And this sets up the mystery of who is Gotham, who is Gotham Girl, who are these heroes, where do they come from? You know, are they more powerful than Batman? They announce, this is our city, we're here to save it. In theory, these are going to be allies to Batman, but it's also going to start to question a little bit of, you know, Batman has always considered Gotham his city, and that he's the protector of it, and he will own it and control it. Not own it and control it, just he will take the responsibility for it, I guess is the best way to put it. So introducing these two characters is going to create that conflict of, are other people also taking the responsibility for it? So that's an interesting dynamic we're about to get into, and that's where the run goes. So that's how the issue ends. Relatively quick, you know, one little adventure and moment. Some parts of it that if you think back on it, this run showed some promise in the sense of Batman maybe getting, you know, we both showed that he can outclass others in, you know, being smart about steering this plane and getting up to it and being able to save the day against impossible odds. And then right after he does this, in come two heroes who are, you know, stronger than him, that can fly around, just lift planes up and everything else. So, you know, where does all of his cleverness, his willingness to die, his internal commitment mean? What does that mean if you've got two heroes that can just, they've got the power and they can just kind of do what they're going to do? It's curious to see how this run developed, because again, I think aspects of, you know, fully dragging Batman down through depression, using his wedding and Catwoman and Bane breaking him in the nightmares and all the rest of the stuff that came between issue 50 and 80, all of that stuff, the introduction of Thomas Wayne and kind of back into the world from the Flashpoint universe and all the rest. I have feelings that big parts of his run were changed, or at least these ideas came to him kind of mid-run, because it felt like Tom King was going in a certain direction with Batman here. That frankly, I mean, I remember articles saying how pleased people were that we were getting away from Snyder's kind of over the top, you know, the kitchen sink and everything else way of writing Batman to this, that this was a return to form of Batman being a hero, saving Gotham, and kind of that aspect of his personality. And we got, after this, we got a little bit of into his detective skills and everything else. So it's very interesting to see this. It's a reminder to people that once upon a time, not that long ago, actually, just 3-4 short years ago, roughly, it was, you know, Tom King was the superstar, and people loved him, and people were really excited, and I think people are even excited about this. I mean, the big eye-rolling part was, I remember people didn't necessarily care for Gotham and Gotham Girl. I thought those were cheesy names, but in hindsight, you know, these were the situations that were being set up. This is where it was going. So a reminder of Tom King, Batman #1, what it meant, where it was at. And now I'm curious to you, what do you think? Do you think that he had his entire arc and plan rolled out? Do you think that this was hinting at things to come with Catwoman and the marriage and who he was as a person? There's definitely some elements yes and some elements no. So I'm very interested to get your thoughts on the matter. So leave a comment below. Love to hear your opinion. Like and subscribe. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Much appreciated if you do. And you can follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch. I like taking a look at these older issues and seeing how we got here. And so, you know, hey, if there's some comics and some runs you'd like me to look at, please let me know. As always, thanks for listening.